Hey Rebooters, Noah Church here. I'm so glad you all enjoyed my video last week, triggered a PSA for former fappers. I'm going to be making some more videos like that since you all enjoyed it so much. But this week, or actually last week, I interviewed with Covenant Eyes president Ron DeHaas. We had a conversation. In case you don't know, Covenant Eyes, it's an organization that produces accountability software for people trying to quit porn. So if I'm trying to quit porn, for example, I can install this software on all my devices. And not only does it have the option to filter out adult content, but it will also send a report of my internet activity to someone that I've assigned as my accountability partner. So that every week they get this report, and if there are any flag searches or something, then they can have a conversation with me about that. And that way I know that I'm accountable with somebody and I have a community there to support me. And it's much harder for me to think of the online world as a separate world in which there are no consequences, right? Because we know that there are. So I had this conversation with Ron DeHaas as part of this greater series they're doing, interviewing people who are working in this field. I'm going to link to a couple more down below. He did one with Alexander Rhodes, the founder of NoFap, and one that I especially liked with Dr. Mary Ann Layden, a psychiatrist who specializes in dealing with couples who are struggling with porn addiction and the trauma that the partner of the porn addict often goes through. And she really explains quite well what goes on in the brain of a long-term porn user and porn addict. So check those out after this one, and without further ado, I hope you enjoy the interview.
Hi, I'm Ron DeHaas. I'm the president and founder of Covenant Eyes, and we are here today as part of a series on the effects of internet pornography on your body. Now we've had three interviews so far. The first with Alexander Rhodes, and then we had an interview with David Granroth, and then last week we had an interview with Mary Ann Layden. This week I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine, Noah Church. Noah is in Portland, Oregon, so we have him working remotely, so hopefully this will work out okay. Noah is started and runs a website called addictedtointernetporn.com, and so I would first of all encourage you to visit that site. He has just amazing resources on that, a lot of videos, and just so videos like you're watching right now with great interviews, really good information on that site. We'll talk about a couple of those points along the way today. And so, Noah, I'd just like to ask you what motivated you to start addictedtointernetporn.com?
Well, thanks for the introduction, Ron. I guess we're live right now.
Yes, I believe we are, yeah.
Well, growing up, I grew up as one of the first people to grow up in the age of the internet when it was common for homes to have a computer with internet access. And for me, since about the age of 9 or 10, using porn was just normal for me. And it wasn't until I was an adult at age 24 that I realized it had done a lot of harm to my sexual development, to my relationships, and my emotional state. And I decided once and for all to quit, and that was about almost 3 years ago now, more than 3 years ago now. And that process was just so transformative for me, and I wished so much that I had undertaken that journey sooner, that I had known that porn could cause me harm and had the opportunity to recognize that and quit. So I decided to write the book that I would have needed, back when I was 17, 18 years old, and publish that, and that's where it all started. And I started my website, started doing YouTube videos, interviewing people who had gone through this process and answering questions that I get a lot. So that's how it started.
Wow, I have visited your site, and it just has a lot of resources on it. I really do encourage people to visit it. Get on it as soon as we're done here, because it really has some great resources. I think if people are watching this, they're interested in this subject, and really the resources there are fantastic. And so one question then, do you have a feeling for how many people visit the site, how many people use your resources?
The site gets usually a couple hundred unique visitors each day, so I'm not breaking the million mark like NoFap, but I answer a lot of very specific questions that might not apply to everyone recovering from porn, but there are a lot of people out there who are dealing with very specific aspects of porn recovery, and I want everyone to have those answers available if they need them.
Well, I will do what I can to promote it because it's good information. It's always good for me to see people's faces, and that's why I really appreciate the videos on your site, because you can actually watch what's going on. I really do appreciate that. What would you consider then is the what are you trying to accomplish? What's the mission of addictedinternetporn.com?
Well, my mission long term, I'm not necessarily for banning pornography. I don't think that we can ever stop the flood of pornography. It's just like alcohol, people are going to keep making it, keep distributing it. And I think that banning it might drive it underground and increase the risk for performers and so on. But what I want to do is educate the public so it becomes part of the public consciousness that porn can have these negative side effects, like making it impossible to have real sex, getting in the way of fulfilling relationships, giving someone a lack of ambition and brain fog and anxiety in social situations, etc. Just so that if someone suspects, you know, maybe this porn is a problem in my life, they can easily find resources to help them out. And so the parents can talk to their kids about it before they start using pornography, so the kids know right away, yeah, this could be a negative influence in my life. This can make it hard for me to have a real boyfriend or a real girlfriend. I just want it to be like cigarettes, you know? It took decades for the public to realize that cigarettes were harmful, could have negative health effects. And it didn't stop everybody from smoking, surely, but it gave everyone the opportunity to make an informed decision. And that's what I'd like to do with porn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people who smoke cigarettes, you know, I don't think I've ever met someone who smokes who doesn't want to quit because they realize the effects on their body.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's true for pornography. I have met some people who use pornography who don't want to quit. But one of the things that that I believe will make a difference, a cultural difference in accomplishing the mission that you've laid out, is if people were aware of the effects that it's really having on your body. It has an effect on your mind, and we're going to do a series with some great psychologists and psychiatrists to actually, you can actually see the images. Marianne touched on this last week. You can actually see in the images of the brain the effect that pornography has on the brain.
Yeah.
But it has other effects on the body too, and you referred to some of those. And so could you elaborate on some of those effects that it has on your body?
Well, the effects that it has on your body, they all stem from the brain, so those two are interlinked. But,
Sure.
you know, it was a slow process for me. It was over years of consistent use. I was using porn most every day, 1 or 2 times a day, maybe sometimes more. And I didn't really notice the changes as they were happening, but looking back, I can see that there were dramatic changes in my sexuality especially. It started to escalate to types of pornographic content that I really didn't find jived with my natural sexuality. They were extreme and shocking, but I found that as time went on, I needed those more extreme stimuli to get the same amount of arousal that I was getting before.
Wow.
And looking back, I know that that was a product of tolerance. You know, like an alcoholic who can't feel 1 or 2 beers anymore needs a lot more alcohol to feel that buzz. I needed a lot more extreme content. And by the time I was 18 years old, I was with my first serious girlfriend, and we decided we loved each other and we wanted to experience sex together. And this has been something I've been looking forward to all my life. I was really attracted to her and I cared about her. But when the time came, you know, she was naked in front of me and I just didn't have any physical response. And that really shocked me because I thought of myself as a person with the highest sex drive. You know, I was always been thinking about girls my whole life and masturbating most every day. So I was really confused and shocked about what was going on here. I thought it might just be nerves because it was my first time. So we tried, you know, many more times, and it just never worked. And I would search for answers online because I was too embarrassed to talk about this to anyone in my real life. So I would Google things like, you know, young man can't get it up or erection problems. And what I found at that time, and this was back in 2008, was that it's got to be just performance anxiety or nerves, unless it's some organic problem, like blocked arteries. I knew it wasn't that because I could get erect easily to perform. So I figured, well, maybe I just masturbate too much. So I give it a rest for a couple of weeks, and I'll look at porn for a couple of weeks. But that didn't work either. So I figured it couldn't be the porn. And that process and that cycle continued in all my relationships for the next 6 years. And it was not only a physical effect, but it was devastating on my self-esteem and my self-confidence and my sexual identity. Because I couldn't have sex. I was sexually broken. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that I realized it was porn-induced erectile dysfunction, that my body and my mind had become conditioned to be aroused by a computer screen. And the real life situation, an intimate situation, just wasn't enough to produce a physical arousal reaction in me. And that's when I started reading other people's stories, and I realized that it's not just going to take a couple of weeks like I had quit before for a couple of weeks to recover. It could take months to up to a year or even longer. And for me, it was about 2.5, 3 months before I was able to have sex for the first time after I quit. And it was about a year before I felt like I was fully recovered and back to where I should have been.
Wow, that's quite a story. And we have mentioned in previous interviews on Facebook Live, this actually has a name: porn-induced erectile dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a thing. It really is.
Yeah.
So, and you obviously, now I know there are scientific studies out there, and they're good scientific studies that show the relationship between pornography and porn-induced erectile dysfunction. But it sounds like you didn't need those scientific studies to convince you. Is that right?
Well, I did, partly. One of the first things that I did when my light bulb moment was to watch Gary Wilson's TED Talk, The Great Porn Experiment.
Oh, sure.
And that has more than 7 million views right now. It's made such a difference in a lot of people's lives. And in that talk, he talks about porn's effect on people's brains and this new phenomenon of porn-induced ED and the communities that were popping up on the internet to help each other recover and quit porn and have real sex again. And so I was seeing all this, and I navigated to yourbrainonporn.com, which is Gary Wilson's website. And that's where he collects, all the research related to pornography and human sexuality. And there are more than 25, I think, brain studies now, specifically about pornography's effect on the brain. And many more studies about its effects on relationships, and surveys about how much porn do you use, related to do you have difficulty in bed, and that sort of a thing. So there was a lot of evidence mounting up, in addition to all the anecdotes I was reading from people who were quitting porn, who had experienced symptoms very similar to myself, and were recovering as time went on away from pornography.
Sure. If you've just joined us, we are here with Noah Church, who runs the website addictedtointernetporn.com, a great resource, and so please visit that resource. I have some statistics that I've shown before. They're so stunning to me that I'm going to show them again. And the first statistic is from a Kinsey study in 1948 that said that less than 1% of men under 18 to 30 years old, less than 1%, had erectile dysfunction. And then a 1992 study that was published in the American Journal of, the Journal of the American Medical Association, said that about 7% of men 18 to 30 had erectile dysfunction. And the shocking thing to me is that a study that was published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine in 2014 said that 33% of men 18 to 30 are experiencing erectile dysfunction. That almost sounds unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
Is that a reasonable number? Do you think that's possible?
I definitely find that believable. 7% for 1992, that's higher than most. Even by 2002, we were still seeing studies that showed that 2 to 5% of guys 18 to 40 were experiencing ED. But by 2012 and on, it's around 30% or higher. One study of 16 to 21-year-old young men found that 27% of them experienced erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
And 55% of them experienced some sort of sexual dysfunction, including reduced libido for real partners. And if we had, 1,400% increase in rates of hypertension or any other disease, we'd have a medical outcry and we'd all be wondering what's going on. But because I think this is sexual related, this country is not very good at addressing sexual topics, and people haven't really paid much attention to it. But absolutely, from all the people I've talked to and just talking to my friends about this, and they would say like, oh, maybe that's why it didn't work all those times when I thought it was just nerves or because I had a couple of drinks. And it's not that everyone who has PIED can never have sex like it was for me. I had a severe case. Some people can still make it work some of the time. It's just not very satisfying and not very reliable. But once they quit porn, they realize it was PIED as well.
You imply by comparing it to some other diseases that this has actually risen to the level of a public health crisis. It sounds like it is.
Yeah, I mean it's not killing anyone unless someone is emotionally distraught enough to commit suicide over it, and that has happened. But it's absolutely a public health crisis because it's impacting not only our sexual health, but that overlays into our emotional health. And I don't really want to live in a society of people who are numbed emotionally by porn and unhappy in their relationships and their personal life and unproductive because of that. I'd rather live in a society of people who are porn-free and engaging in wonderful, happy relationships and being productive and ambitious in their lives.
So that being numb to your surroundings, and earlier on you mentioned a brain fog. Could you talk a minute about what you mean by that? What is this brain fog, and is this brain fog actually related to the porn use? Are you certain that it comes from the porn use?
As certain as I can be, yeah. So what happens, I'm not going to go too deep into the brain science, but
Sure.
When we see anything that's stimulating, either in a way that tells us that we want it or in a way that frightens us and makes us want to run away, we get a hit of dopamine, a neurochemical in our brain, in the reward circuit of our brain. And that tells us that it's time to do something, either go and get something or go away from something. And internet porn is very good at delivering a high spike of dopamine into the brain through our eyes, because it's a constant stream of sexual novelty, and sexual stimuli are the most powerful natural stimuli that we can get. We can get more higher dopamine spikes with hard drugs like heroin and cocaine. But internet porn, one thing that's unique about it is that we can keep those dopamine levels raised for hours as we click from video to video, edge, as we call it, delaying orgasm so we can keep watching porn. And over years of doing this system in our brain gets desensitized because it's being overloaded and it has to defend itself against this overstimulation. So it numbs. And that system isn't just for sex, it's for everything in our lives. So over time, everyday things just become less stimulating. Friendships become less interesting, and like doing homework, it might have to get done, but it's just not as interesting as internet porn. Because at this point, internet porn is the thing that gives us that highest spike of dopamine and arousal and interest. So over time, we become numb to other things in our lives. And after I quit, I noticed, felt like I was more in touch with the people in my life, and I was certainly more ambitious and more able to focus on my work, less distracted by temptations to use pornography or even watch TV or anything like that. And I was more in touch with my emotions. I remember from the age of 10 to 22, 23, I didn't cry a single time.
Wow.
And that coincides exactly with when I was using pornography. And after a couple of months free of porn, I remember I heard a news story on the radio about this murder that had happened, and I started to cry because I just felt it. So yeah, absolutely, pornography can numb us, and quitting can heal that process.
And so your testimony is that it did affect all areas of your life, and yet you're willing to share this openly, obviously, and to talk about a past that some people might feel difficult to talk about, what was in their past like that. But yet you talk about it in such a transformative way. You even used that word transformative earlier. Yeah. That it transformed who you are, really. It the change from using pornography to not using pornography also affected all areas of your life, but in a much more positive way. So, if someone is seeking help, what would you suggest for them? I guess maybe if you talk a little bit personally, how did you, what made you change, and then what would you suggest for other people as well?
Well, there are a few things that I can say right off the top of my head. Of course, I fill the book with advice like this. But one thing is educate yourself, learn as much as possible about pornography and its impact on people, read other people's stories, read the brain science, watch the videos, and learn about what's going on in your own mind, because I think that knowledge is definitely power in this case. We can use that knowledge to better heal. Another thing that really helped me was breaking down the walls I had built up around myself and my secrets, and just talking to people about this. And of course, I took it to the nth extreme and talked to the whole world about it, which I don't think everyone should do. But just being able to talk about my sexuality and my porn-induced erectile dysfunction with my friends and my family, and opening up to them about that released a lot of the shame I had felt about being sexually broken. And I think it really unlocked the path toward recovery for me, because I felt so much lighter and so much more free to move into the future that was a porn-free future. And another thing, build up a support network, at least talk to people online who are going through this. There's a lot of good forums out there right now, like Dave Dean's RebootNation.org and Your Brain Rebalance, NoFap. Speak to other people who are going through this and help each other.
One of my purposes in conducting these interviews is to promote resources, and your resource, Addicted to InternetPorn.com, is one of those resources. And I saw one post that you had, I don't know, maybe a month ago. It was Jessica's story. And so do you find that women are seeking out help like men are? I guess, do both men and women seek help from your website?
Yes, certainly. So we know that both men and women use pornography. Women seem to use it to a lesser degree, and speaking generally, women tend to be more aroused by relationship interplay and stories and emotional interplay than men, who are more aroused generally by visual cues. So pornography is very visual, and so it taps into more males' lives than women's. But a lot of women use pornography. A study of high school seniors showed that 78% of them, boys and girls, used pornography regularly. And another study back in 2010 showed that 31% of college-age females use porn regularly. So certainly they can get addicted just as we can, and it can be worse for them because men have a longer natural refractory period after orgasm where they feel like their libido has abated, whereas women have the potential for multiple orgasms and can just keep going for hours and hours. And also I get women who reach out to me for help with their relationships. Why is my husband or my boyfriend continuing to use pornography even though he knows it hurts me? What's going on with him? How can I help him, or how can I stop his behavior? So I get a lot of that as well.
Now, one thing that I know you do is you actually do one-on-one coaching, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? So what type of person would come to you seeking, would it have to be someone who's addicted, or what type of person would come to you for help?
Most of the people who book sessions with me are struggling personally with the problem with pornography. Either they're addicted and they can't seem to stop and they want help just being able to stop, or some people develop PIED or other porn-induced sexual dysfunctions without actually being addicted. And addiction necessitates that even once they try to quit, they're unable to. And some of these people are able to quit and never use it again, but they still have a lot of questions about the recovery process of PIED, and how do I talk to my girlfriend about this? How long is this going to take? Etc. So I answer a lot of those questions too. And some of them are partners of porn addicts as well.
So would I have to fly to Portland to get these sessions? How does this happen?
You could, I guess. No one's ever done that before, but no, it's over the phone and Skype, and I do some email coaching as well. That's just for a few questions though. And full coaching, I prefer to do it on the phone or Skype.
How would I start that process with you if I decide I am interested in coaching?
Well, go to my website and click the Get My Help tab, and you can learn all about it. If you have any questions, anyone can email me at noah@addictedtointernetporn.com.
Noah@addictedtointernetporn.com. NOAH.
That's right.
Yeah.
I try to give away as much as possible for free because I just want everybody to know this information and to be able to help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I make a lot of videos, and I give away my book for free as a PDF. Anyone who subscribes to my newsletter. But yeah, one-on-one time just takes enough time that I have to charge for that.
You have to charge for that, no doubt. How many sessions would you typically want to meet with someone to help them through the struggle?
It really depends on the individual. I mean, some people, especially the ones who don't feel addicted but still are struggling with porn-induced erectile dysfunction and that recovery process, some of them just need only one session to get their questions answered. And it's not very good for repeat business because a couple weeks later I'll check in with them. They'll be like, "Oh, everything is awesome. Thank you so much."
Yeah.
No more problems, which means that no more repeat business for me. But that's great because they're doing well.
Yeah.
And I also sell coaching sessions in bundles of 3 for a reduced rate. So that's for people who need more long-term guidance.
Yeah. I haven't made it a practice during these interviews to plug Covenant Eyes, but the accountability really is, we have had so many testimonies, people talking about how accountability has just cured them from the addiction. To be able to have a friend like you who I can go to and say, "Hey, will you keep me accountable in my internet use?" So that's...
When I was recovering, I don't think I get heard about Covenant Eyes, but it's recommended on my website now, and I recommend it to people who are looking for something like that. I like that it's not just a filter; it's something that builds in community and community support. It's a way for people to be accountable to people and know that this internet world isn't a separate world. It's still tied to my real life, and I'm going to be held accountable for that.
Yeah, that's really true. If you had perhaps one thing that you could tell people, if there probably is somebody who's listening or will listen to this who is struggling, and so what one thing would you tell them to do to change their lives? And to begin with, I have to say it changes your life. You've given a great testimony. It changed your life to quit
totally.
this. And so what would you say?
A single aspect of my life that has not been improved since I quit pornography.
So what's the one thing? I guess where would I next put my foot? What would be my next step in overcoming pornography?
Well, if I have just one message to tell the people who are struggling, it's just never to give up hope. I get people all the time who tell me, I'm 26 years old, I feel like I've wasted the last 10 years of my life, wasted a lot of my relationships. I just don't know if I can ever recover at this point. But then I also get 35-year-olds who would kill to be 26 again and have the opportunity to quit when they were 26, and 45-year-olds who would kill to be 35 again and quit when they were 35, and so on. So a full recovery for PIED, certainly from 0% able to have sex to 100% is absolutely possible. So don't give up hope. We can always change our lives. Our past doesn't have to control our present. Our present can determine our future. So we can make different choices now than we've made in the past. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, Noah, I sure appreciate your willingness to join us in this interview.
Appreciate the opportunity, Ron.
Yeah, addictedtointernetporn.com. Please visit that site and go through some of the videos. That would be another thing I'd recommend. Is there are a lot of resources out there, and in the other interviews that I've done and will do, going to be presenting resources for help. And a good place to start is on Noah's site right now. So I would encourage you, if you are struggling with pornography, and when this interview is done, don't leave your computer, go right to addictedtointernetporn.com. Because there are great resources there. So take advantage.
I've watched the other videos in this series too. I watched Marianne Layden's and Alexander Rhodes' episodes yesterday, and they're great, really valuable.
Yeah, they're great. They really are. So thank you, Noah. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron.
See, next week we have a visitor coming. Jay Dennis from Lakeland, Florida is going to be here. He is the senior pastor of a large church down in Lakeland. And he's going to be talking about a new resource that he has as well. So I'm going to welcome Jay Dennis next week. So thanks. Goodbye.